Okay.
Alright, welcome to the Proctor360 webinar. My name is Kranti Batula, CTO of Proctor360. We're glad you could join us today. Before we begin, I want to thank you all for taking the time to attend this session. Proctor360's goal is to bring testing directly to the consumer while still maintaining a high degree of security. We want to allow students to take exams from anywhere of their choice, making it more convenient for them and saving on cost in the process. I want to take a moment to further introduce our company and the team that we've built. Ganga, the CEO, who's worked in the testing industry for the past 10 years, owned multiple testing centers and saw that the testing market was headed online, but that current online testing technology still lacks security. Don Kastner, the COO, who was the previous founder and CEO of Proctor360, is one of the largest online testing companies in the world. We're very glad that he joined the team as he brought a lot of expertise in the industry with him. We avoided many pitfalls for an early company in this industry through his guidance. Don is currently acting as our sales representative. He has contacts in the online industry, so it's easy for him to get a meeting with the company's CEO or CTO. Myself, the CTO, I have experience leading and working with teams to design and build devices for commercial use. I've worked with various organizations ranging from universities to Fortune 500 companies. George Siragusa, who's our chief financial and sales strategist, he's worked with and been a mentor to many startups and CEOs. He's given us a lot of guidance as well as helped us grow as a startup. Davis Cook, our media manager, who's helped us create a lot of content that we've been able to put out. He developed a lot of our YouTube videos through his experience in content creation. And Scott Crumpler, who's our marketing advisor. He recently came on to help us with our fundraising campaign. We built a lot of traction with his help. His experience working with companies in the past let us efficiently market ourselves. So to talk a bit more about who we are and why we can effectively and efficiently tackle the testing market. We have a combined 25 years of experience working in the secure testing field. We've delivered millions of exams both in testing centers and online, partnered with leading testing companies, trained proctors to handle multiple clients at a time, regularly deal with testing issues efficiently. We combined our experience and expertise to invent Proctor360. These are some of the major companies or organizations we've partnered with in the past. We have experience in the industry and know how they work and how easily they can adopt our technology and integrate it to use for their exams. So as I was saying before, we've been in the testing industry for a long time and seen the direction of the market, as well as the limitations of the available options. The main options for testing currently are testing centers and online testing, both of which come with their own set of problems. Testing centers are physical locations that an individual has to travel to take their test. The student is required to test in an unfamiliar location at a specific time with limited options in the availability of centers and proctors, overall putting the burden on the student. They also tend to have high operational costs. I'd like to point out that these are not only observations that we made, but are also backed up by journal and web articles. So to combat these issues, online testing became a solution. It uses a single webcam to monitor the test taker. This allows students to test remotely, but came with many security concerns. A recent study was conducted and stated that 33% of students taking online classes have admitted to cheating. Of that, only 2.1% were actually caught. So you can see there's a huge gap that needs to be filled here. There are literally dedicated websites showing methods on ways around a single camera system, as it's prone to blind spots and lacks comprehensiveness. It allows for easy cheating and content theft. This same technology has been in use for the past 10 years without much change. A lot of schools and especially companies that require testing realize this about online testing and opt to still use testing centers because of security concerns. Our solution to this problem was simple: to use a headset with a mounted 360-degree camera to get a full view of the testing space. Our multi-view system gets a lot of information from different angles. We get a 360 view from the headset, a front view from the computer camera, a screen capture from the browser, and any sounds in the area from the mic. Our proctors monitor the exam and are trained to recognize cheating behavior. All information is recorded and can be accessed later for audit purposes. Proctors are able to view up to 6 tests at a time. This allows us to maintain a high number of users and be scalable. Here is a demo of our tech in use. This is from the proctor perspective and what they see when the user is testing. So the proctor is fed these 3 views in real time. You can see that the test taker is taking exam from the screen grab, the 360 camera is monitoring the room, and the front-facing camera is monitoring the student directly. We can see if anyone is coming into the room or any cheating material is present. All angles can be zoomed in on to get a better view. Additionally, if the proctor wants to contact the student, they can do so directly through the chat window. So for this specific test, you can see that there's something hanging off the test taker's laptop on the right side. It's a sticky note with notes on it. This is a common way to cheat the single camera system because it's outside the field of view. The dual camera system allows us to notice that and ask the student to remove it before the test even begins. We tried to make the test taker experience as simple as possible for easy use by the end user. They just have to sign up on Proctor360.com and schedule their exam and exam date. The headset is shipped to them. They receive the headset. On the day of the exam, they connect the headset and begin their session. The proctor verifies ID in the workspace. They begin the exam. The session is proctored. The test is completed. The proctor verifies that the exam has no cheating occurred, and the headset is shipped back in the same box it came. Once received back in our warehouse, we refurbish it and resend it to the next user. Looking at the other options available on the market, we really tried to cover all the areas that the others were lacking in. Test centers and kiosks may minimize cheating and protect content, but they're not convenient and have high operational costs. Single webcam testing may be convenient, but has blind spots that are easily cheated. Proctor360 is able to cover all bases by using 360-degree technology to prevent any blind spots, be remote, and save on costs. Our users are very diverse. College courses at online schools require their tests to regularly test. IT professionals have to get certifications to further their career. Medical professionals need to regularly maintain their licenses. Trade professionals working in construction or government have to show they understand regulation. All these fields require testing and require people to use testing centers. They now have the option to take their exams from home with the same level of security. Our growth strategy is to target direct and channel partners. Direct partners use our system, the headset, proctoring, and software to deliver their exams. This will mostly consist of web-based and paper-based exams. Channel partners are companies that have their own software that's developed specifically for their exams. We will license our headset technology for them to use. These will be mostly professional or certification exams. We offer multiple testing options based on customer needs, ranging from high to low security. High security offers the Proctor360 headset with live proctoring. Medium security offers the headset with auto proctoring, where the session is recorded and reviewed later. Low security uses a single webcam. We offer this for tests that may not be weighted very highly but still need to be proctored. Through these various packages, we're able to offer web-based, paper-based, and hybrid exams. The market opportunity for this technology is huge. E-learning is growing rapidly. It's currently around $91 billion and only gaining traction. As e-learning grows, testing is going to grow as well. Global computer-based testing is currently around $42 billion. This includes testing centers as well as online testing. We believe that we have the potential to take a portion of this market, as we are targeting both the online testing market as well as the testing center market. The U.S. online testing market is 60 million. We're going to add to it by converting testing center users to online testing through our technology. Online testing year-on-year growth is calculated to be about 15% and estimated to be $2 billion in the U.S. by 2026 and $10 billion worldwide. The driving force to grow the market is the savings on cost, estimated to be around 25%. I also want to point out that the website that published a lot of these figures, learninglight.com, actually mentioned us in a recent article and called us a game changer in the market. So here I'm going to hand it off to Don Kastner to talk about the market, how it's developed over the years, and where Proctor360 fits in.
Great, thanks, Granty. You can hear me just fine, I assume?
Yep.
Good. Okay, yeah. So as many of you know, I've been in the industry pretty much since the beginning. The story being that I was running a small, um, web-based online college down in Birmingham, Alabama. Our students didn't like the way we were testing because they could do all their coursework from home, and then they would have to go to a test center, and they wanted that convenience. So we developed a product for our students. One thing led to another, and we ended up with a new company, and the new industry sort of took off. And so in those initial days, it really was about proving that you could test from home in a secure environment. And the initial clients were really in higher education. That market, online testing was taking over, online courses were taking over, and they were really concerned about the ability for students, to have the exam integrity and make sure that you replicated what was happening in the classroom. And ultimately, they wanted to be able to catch cheating. Um, the result really is it's more about deterring cheating in that market than it is about catching cheating. The way that I put it is if you're driving your car down the freeway, you're flying along at 10, 15 miles an hour over the speed limit. You see a cop up, below a bridge up there, and you slow down, to the speed limit of 70 or 65. And so really, by putting a camera in somebody's on their computer, we can see them take the test. It really eliminates most of it. It acts as a great deterrent. And it can also catch cheating as well because we were watching them on video. But ultimately, we needed to replicate what was in the classroom, and it was great for very diverse courses, very broad-based delivered courses, and we saw it take off. Geez, I can't talk today. It must be Friday, Granty. Um, we saw it take off, and we had some initial early adopters, and then the market really started to hit the mainstream. Now there were problems with it. It was really difficult to do courses that had a lot of work done off the computer. So if you did a math course or a statistics course where they had to do work on the side, having a single camera view, it's very difficult to see that. Scalability became a big issue because as you got more and more test takers, the concept of proctoring them live with proctors, you got some bottlenecks, and there was lots of discussions over how many students a proctor could view at one time. There were some companies that, said they could, they would only proctor, once 2 students for every proctor. Other companies were looking at, 8 to 10. Either way, as thousands of students started testing, you had bottlenecks, and again, the single camera view was an issue. What was really interesting as we started to get into the mid decade, so I guess these are the 20 teens, so 2015 and 2016, we started to see a change, a move away from that initial model of just having a single camera, 1-to-1 proctor student ratio, or 1-to-2, 1-to-4, 1-to-6, things like that. And there was a real focus on technology. The new entrants into the market, starting in about 2014, were coming in with technology-based applications. So the idea was to collect as much data as possible, collect audio data, video data, data on the session, data on different websites, even data on the test, and try to compile all that in a way that was could spit out flagged reports where you could identify potential problems. All of those developments, which are continuing today, are very exciting because they start to allow us to automatically flag and have the computer do what it does well. I had a faculty member at one of the large universities in the early in the decade tell me we should let the humans do what they do well and let the computers do what they do well. And so ultimately, technology is coming to the forefront and is starting to flag events, and then we allow the human being to make a judgment. And so as we start to look at the development over the next 3, 4, 5 years, I think we're going to see that continue, and we're going to start to see a lot more AI built into the product, so that we can get to the point where it's almost like a home security system, where you've got all of these sensors that are monitoring what's going on in the house, and then if something trips one of those sensors, then a live person can intervene immediately. And so we're really seeing a focus on that. But as we start to really get beyond the higher ed market and we get into markets, credentialing, professional testing, certification markets, the issues are much different. As I said early on, it was about catching cheating and deterring cheating. But in those marketplaces, there's a much higher level of exam security. There are issues that are related to protecting items, protecting content, making sure ultimately that you have valid tests, right? So if you're credentialing professionals or certifying professionals in a particular industry, it's critical that those tests are valid, because if they're not valid, you're putting life at risk. You're putting careers at risk. You're putting livelihood at risk. It's a much different risk that goes beyond just the classroom, where an individual student is learning, multiple subjects and matriculating towards a degree. In certification, credentialing, professional testing, the liability is much higher. It's not just the risk reward for the candidate, but it's the society and the market in general. And so the result is that you have to have a very high level of exam security. And so it's been a real challenge to basically cross that chasm and get the traditional proctoring tools into that market. We've started to see some success recently, but in order to really have it hit the mainstream, it's clear that we need to be able to, again, replicate that test security that we see in the test centers and start to assure that we've got everything covered. And so with the bring your own device, bring your own environment model, we need the ability to monitor more things and more activity and start to plug some of the holes that you get from just a traditional one camera view. And that's why I was attracted to Proctor360 and thought it was a great idea. It's really the ability to monitor much more and really start to assure that we're getting the same level, if not a better level, of exam security as we start to branch out beyond just the higher ed market. So, Craig, I think that's really my part. So I'll hand it back over to you.
Thank you, Don. So I did want to talk about some of the traction that we've built as in such an early stage of our company. Recently, we were mentioned in a Learning Light article as I was talking about earlier. It mentioned our tech and it compared it to the other options on the market. They stated that we're a potential game changer in the market. We're really glad that they share the same vision that we do and see the value and potential in the Proctor360 system. We've also been attracting customers and making partnerships, most recently with ProV and PSB, who plan to use our system to deliver their exams. Here I wanted to talk about the recent Start Engine campaign that we started to get investment for our seed round. It's a Title III crowdfunding campaign that allows anyone to invest. So traditionally, investment comes from accredited investors that require a high minimum investment. You can see that this limits a lot of people from buying shares in a company early on. We wanted to be able to offer both the public as well as traditional investors the opportunity to own a part of Proctor360, and is why we went down the crowdfunding route. Title III regulation crowdfunding allows anyone to buy shares in a company and is regulated by the SEC. Online platforms host all the offering details and is where one would go to buy shares. Proctor360 is hosted on Start Engine. You can visit the sec.gov if you want more info about regulation. Anyone can invest in a Title III, both non-accredited and accredited investors. They typically have lower minimum investment, and all the offering details are published online. So if you were to go to the Proctor360 campaign page, you could see the minimum investment, share price, and class of shares that an investor would get. This is a display of our campaign page for crowdfunding investment. The page contains much of the information we talked about here, as well as more, so make sure to check it out at startengine.com/Proctor360. For any interested customers on the webinar, we invite you to partner with us. You can go to Proctor360.com and request a demo of our technology, and of course we'd be happy to give you one. We will now be taking questions if there are any.
Kranthi, while we wait to see if anybody has any questions in the live chat there, this is Scott Crumpler, by the way, for anybody listening in. I had a thought uh, about what you said in the beginning of your presentation about how your channel partners are mostly companies that have professional certifications, and Don talked about that a little bit later on, just about how critical it is, not just for cheating, but the credibility of the exam and the certification itself all hinges on the exam certification being reliable, that the test results are reliable, that there's some way to audit those results at any future time. And as more and more people are seeking those kinds of professional certifications, as they do continuing education and continuing learning, as their second or third, career move, it just becomes so very critical. So, when you talk about a market where the global e-learning market being, $91 billion market, that's a $91 billion market that's supporting, a professional industry, many professional industries that equate to many billions more than just that, because it's these professional certifications that change a person's salary substantially. I mean, you can take a look at what happens to a person's salary when they earn a PMP, a project management professional certification, or a business analyst certification. People seek out those professional certifications because because it means a different life for them. It means a better career. But the companies that hire those people with those certifications have to have trust and faith that the certification is meaningful. And that's why some of the other, some of the smaller certifications for project management or for IT related professional roles are not as trusted as the ones where you currently have to go to these live testing centers. I mean, but the thing about it is, that may be the best option before you guys came along. But we're finding out now with this thing that was in the news with the FBI stopping this college exam cheating scam that was going nationwide for years. Live testing centers are even susceptible to cheating because there's somebody there you can bribe. That's the other thing I really like about Proctor360 is that it takes that human element away from it, where these proctors are somewhere else entirely location wise, and you don't really have a personal relationship with the people proctoring your exam. So there's no, it completely eliminates that possibility of cheating that even a live testing center has. I mean, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, the other thing about that is it's actually verifiable. So like we record everything that's happening, not just from the front view or just the 360 camera, but you get every view. So if something doesn't match up, you'd be able to go back and say, hey, there's something going on here. So that's another thing that going back to the FBI case that you were talking about earlier, there was no verifiability. There were no like cameras in the area where they could go back to and check on. But using a system like this where it has so many different views, you'd be able to check it and make sure from different angles. So there's no it eliminates a lot of chance for cheating, and it would, like Don was saying, it would determine even the idea of wanting to cheat, because you know that you'd be it's
eventually
under such
you're getting caught.
yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible. Another thing, you and I were talking about this actually earlier in the week, that there's really even, convenience is one thing. And when we were talking early in the week, you mentioned that, that it's convenience is really the direction every market is going, especially in the United States, but in all prosperous countries where people expect it, from services like Netflix and Uber and things like that. Companies that are truly worth billions of dollars now. Wouldn't you like to have invested in one of those when they were at a startup stage? But in addition to the inconvenience, there's a real social progress component to it too, because online learning has been a real boon for having access to education, especially for people that are full-time working parents that work full-time jobs, or sometimes work a full-time job and a half-time, and a part-time job to support their families, and they're taking online classes at night or on the weekends because they're trying to make a better life for themselves and for their families and for their future. But when you get, and the online learning works, that's great. It's arrived. So they have access to that education. But then when it comes to taking the exams, the really meaningful ones, the ones that are the proctored exams that have, that come along with certifications and the validation of their learning, they've still got to go travel to a live testing center. And that's not just inconvenient. It may be, truly a hindrance to someone being able to advance their career or better their lives, just because they're already doing online learning or taking online classes because they have a full-time job or because they have a family they're taking care of, and trying to find a live testing center that will proctor the exam that they need to take and that isn't filled up is a real it's a real impediment to anyone currently using online learning to actually get the advancement and get the benefits that they're that are the motivation for them doing it in the first place.
Yeah, yeah, very true. It looks like we do have a question here. It says, where are your live proctors located, U.S. or foreign based? They are U.S. based. The actual process of a proctor getting an exam is completely random. It really depends on down the line when there are so many exams being delivered at, or coming in to be delivered at a certain time. You don't know which proctor you would get, so it's completely random. So if anyone was to attempt to bribe a proctor, they wouldn't know which one to go to. So they are U.S. based.
That's a really good question too, and you guys know I see this as a not only as a game changer, but really the future of online testing. You guys got really lit a fire under me when I found out about Proctor360. But I think long term, I think big, just how big this could get. That sure, the U.S. market for remote testing is 60 million, and as you said, Kranthi, you're going to add to that by capturing part of the current live testing market. But think 2, 3, 4 years down the road, distribution centers for the headsets could be located anywhere in the world. Proctor centers could be located anywhere in the world. Not just the exam taker can be located anywhere, but in order to make this a global service, you could really do this anyway. I mean, because it's remote and because it's secure, you could put distribution centers for the headsets in different parts of the world where it would make it easy to ship them to foreign exam takers, and have proctor centers around the world so that you could be doing it 24 hours a day from anywhere and have people speaking the native language. I mean, this could potentially be really, really big. I mean, I see that $42 billion number is as the number to go after. Take all of the computer-based testing market. But that's me. I get big eyes.
I mean, that is a goal, to definitely take and add to a chunk of the market. When we were initially developing the tech for this, obviously we did like a bunch of patent searches, and we wanted to verify the technology, and it seemed kind of obvious. It just seemed like use a 360 camera and just view the entire space. It made sense, and we were genuinely a little surprised that someone else hadn't thought of it. But we knew it was a great idea, and it had a potential for a lot of success. So that's why we decided to start this company and kind of add to the market in a way.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, you guys are in the right place at the right time for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's the key is the right place at the right time. People have thought about this potential before, but it's like everything else, you got to be at the right place at the right time. And I think we were just at our conference recently, actually beginning this week, Association of Test Publishers, and this is the hot topic. I mean, this is the thing that people are talking about. There's movement towards setting standards for remote proctoring, and this type of equipment is going to be key. So I think you've come to the market at the right place at the right time with the right solution, and that means a lot.
That's always great to hear.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I did want to add just to, if we get another question here, you can cut me off, Kranti. Um, about the Title III investment offering. Uh, when this became available as an option for non-accredited investors to invest in private companies, and it just was a rule that became available as of 2016. It's very new. Um, you know, for me, the way I look at it is, you could have had, if you take a company like Facebook or you take a company like Uber, you could have had the vision to see the potential for that, for that those companies to hit big. But if you weren't an accredited investor, you never would have had an opportunity to uh, get in at the ground floor. You couldn't get in at the startup stage if you weren't an accredited investor. So you never would have had a chance, even if you believed in it, even if you saw the potential for those companies to really hit big. And that's really one of the great things about Title III regulation crowdfunding offerings is a non-accredited investor can get in on these big ideas, and they can do it at a startup stage where the potential for growth and the potential for future success can be very large. And thankfully, because most of the minimum investments are so small, the risk isn't even that bad.
Yeah, that's very true.
I mean, before this, the guys that were always in power, the rich guys, the oligarchs, they were the only ones that could invest in these big ideas. So of course it just perpetuated those guys being the ones that enjoyed all the success of these big companies. Looks like
Let's
we got
see.
another question there.
Yeah, it says, what proportions are using live online proctoring or record and review proctoring? What triggers the review process in the record and review proctoring scenario? So I don't know what you mean exactly by proportions. If you could add to that a little bit, I could answer that. The actual triggers, they're viewed by people. So genuinely, I mean, people would be looking, and they'd be looking at the room while simultaneously looking at the person. So if a person tends to be looking in a certain direction on the front view camera, they could go and verify that with the 360 camera and see exactly what they're looking at.
Yeah, Granted, let me jump in there as well. It's yeah. So you set the rules of the exam. I mean, obviously, from a person standpoint, you're looking for, making sure it's the right person, the same person. There's no that they're still there. That someone else hasn't entered the room. And that's the nice thing about the 360 cameras. We can tell when somebody else has entered the room. So those are all just automatic flags. So you're flagging that type of behavior. Those are things that, as we look at the product map, there are technologies that will embed into this that will take care of that, at least on the front facing camera, in terms of what I call, uh, you know, same face, no face, different face, type flagging. Um, there's a whole slew of other flags that long term are going to be built into this, and we're seeing a lot of the other proctoring companies adopt as well. So, but ultimately, it's still going to come down to human judgment and human decision, because people have to remember that people are testing in their environment, so they're at their office, or they're at their house. And so, we're going to have to make that judgment call, just like we make, with the home security systems. The alarm gets tripped, what has happened? And human judgment has to make that call. If the human judgment fails in that situation, then you get auto calls after that. But that's really where the product is going. So let me turn back to you, Kranti. I thought I would jump in on that.
Yeah, thank you. Another question is, of your customers, more use live online proctoring or more use record and review? Most of
I
them,
think he was clarifying what he meant by the
okay.
proportions there, I think.
Yeah, most of them do use live online proctoring, though we did want to offer the record and review. Live online proctoring, the benefits of that is if you have content or test content that you don't want to be stolen or recorded, we'd be able to step in right there and end the exam if we saw any issues occurring.
Yeah, I would jump in on that as well, Kranti. I mean, it's really levels of security. Live is more secure than record and review. In either case, you can document when something happens. With live, you have the ability to intervene and shut down the test. And so, in those cases where security is critical, then we would always recommend that to be done live. Record and review doesn't really lend itself, in my opinion, to the 360 because you're going with the extra level of security. Clearly, if customers want that, we can do that. But my view is it's really designed to be used in a live environment where security is the most important element.
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier very good examples of that too, with medical professionals having to maintain their their licenses and things like that, where they have to have continuing education and they need to be able to um, prove that they've had the proper training and stuff like that, where it's not just a professional certification, but it's actually critical stuff that where it could affect life and death situations. I mean, it makes sense that those exams should be very secure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I mentioned this maybe in one of the first chats we did. Or maybe I just mentioned it in a comment on the Start Engine campaign page. But I also see a great opportunity here for all of the sort of driver safety and drunk driving courses that are court mandated types of training sessions that people have to do after they've gotten into uh, some sort of moving violation or some kind of trouble with the law, that where they have these mandated courses, and oftentimes they're administered by contracted companies, and they're in live training and testing locations. That's the kind of thing that I feel like could be much more efficient for governments, to have these things administered online. And why wouldn't they do it already? Well, the only answer to that is they don't know if the people that are being mandated to take the training would actually do it if they did it online. Well, now with this product, they could. So you're talking about that. I mean, that's tens of thousands of courses and exams that happen every year right there, and just in the U.S. alone.
Yeah, we obviously education and testing has potential in so many different industries, and us being part of the testing industry allows us to go into those other industries as well. So there is a lot of potential, not just in professional testing, but as you were mentioning, other areas where testing is used.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, there's really just uh, there's no end to it. I really see that that computer-based testing market is entirely up for grabs when it comes to this kind of product.
Yeah. All right. I think with that we should end it. If anyone has any questions further from this, they can go to the Start Engine page and, of course, read through the page. But at the bottom, you can actually comment and ask any questions, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks everybody.